Welcome to Pull, Push, Shove, a podcast series celebrating 50 years of Scarborough Group International. I'm Nick Matthew. Pull, Push, Shove. It's more than a phrase. It's a way of working, a way of leading, and a way of making decisions. In this series, we explore the moments, the relationships, and the pressures that shape that mindset and the people who lived it. Today, I'm joined by Kevin and Simon McCabe, as well as Ezra Nahome, to talk about real estate. We discuss the adaptability needed to succeed, the forces reshaping the market, and why the best teams don't wait for certainty before acting. Ezra, thanks for joining Kevin, Simon, and myself today. Tell us a little bit about your history with the McCabes, Scarborough Group, how you guys met.
Yeah.
A bit of context for us.
It involves an umbrella, how we met.
Correct. So Simon and I met at a site which was owned by Scarborough, and they needed some help to look at disposing of this particular asset. And we met on site on what is obviously clearly a very unusual rainy day in London, and it was a torrential downpour. So we get out, a colleague of mine, get out my car. We had no umbrella, trying to find Simon somewhere, and he was the other side of this car park. So we're sort of legging ourselves over to him. By the time we got there, we were absolutely, literally drenched, and he was sort of looking perplexed as to how we could have been so wet so quickly. And we were all laughing and giggling at this thought that we were just standing in the middle of this sort of site, talking about a piece of real estate, and just utterly drenched through and through. So that was my first introduction to Simon, which is now 25 years ago.
And then you're CEO of Lambert Hampton now,
Yes.
so 2009.
Yes.
How do you guys still dovetail, and what projects do you have together still nowadays, some 25 years later?
So the relationship with Scarborough sort of runs pretty deep. So not only what was the sort of interesting baptism of rain with Simon, but of course it very quickly extended into a relationship with Kevin and other colleagues of the business at the time. And it was very clear that Kevin had set out on a pretty ambitious path of growth for the business. I pretty much understood what he was trying to do from the get-go, and really kind of tooled up my colleagues and the business to support Scarborough in its aspirations to grow at that particular period. And we spent the next 6 years implementing a business plan that was incredibly successful. In fact, to the extent that, no surprise for Kevin particularly, but it was pretty pioneering in terms of what was done in that era, which was all about buying standing investments, but it was just the way we did it, how we took the market by storm, how we could deploy money, how we traded, and built an incredibly successful business over that period of time.
Kevin, how did you take market by storm?
Shouting and yelling. Simple, really, isn't it? I suppose with just the benefit of having spent a lot of time in London, albeit, most of our bigger projects were in other parts of the UK, and dealing with so many people in London who are working for organisations that do stretch to have sub-offices, whether it's in Scotland or north of England, and in particular with Ezra and his crowd. I suppose when you're dealing with big projects, there's 1,001 things that need to be done, and there's so many people within the backup firms who need guidance. And with the likes of Ezra and his team, he's been one that's been able to be muscled in to so many of our projects. Great with contacts, great with knowledge, great with presentation skills, and then apart from sporting Spurs, a nice bloke.
Let's not go there, Kevin. Let's not go there.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
Football, Kevin.
It's a long time and a good time.
So Lambert's give us a decent platform across the UK. So they've got offices in pretty much every major city and
How many?
a number of towns. I don't know the answer to that, Ezra. You obviously will inform us shortly. But their platform of officers and people is quite good for a regional active popco like us.
We're at 1,200 employees, I read. Is that
1,600 now.
He's moved up.
Yeah, we moved up.
We're
We had
out
a
of
big
date.
year last
Google's
year.
out of date. We need to have a word with Siri.
Big year last year. So we acquired 2 businesses last year. So we've kind of grown exponentially. But I think to Kevin's, Freud and Simon's point, I think, we see ourselves very much as a national business, but at the same time, both regionally and locally. So supporting clients that operate at local and at regional level, which Scarborough do in one part. But on the other side, there's also a part of their business which is national. So how do you make sure you've got the right resource, putting it into the business, so it all kind of works?
That's one of the impressive things for me when we've been hosting this series, is that local, regional sort of link to then national and global, and just sort of how you pull everything together on such a big scale whilst keeping that local and true to your roots sort of approach. Really, is that something you still sort of, as the business grows, I still try and connect with on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, we do that because we see that from a Lambert with Hampton point of view. We see that as a continuing differentiator in the market. Quite a lot of our competitors have kind of retrenched a bit from the local and regional segments of the market. We've kind of lent into it. We see that as more opportunity to try to get a deeper foothold in what is going on in the regional markets. And that holds us in really good stead.
What projects have you got on together at the moment?
I suppose Lambert's and then their recent acquisition north of the border, Rydens, if they're not directly involved, they're often indirectly involved, advising occupiers and the like. But I would say Ezra and his team are pretty much involved in every single asset or project that the group have. It's not an exclusive arrangement, but he's got a good team, so we use best in class where we can. So
we have one or two people working for us who used to be it.
There are 4 or 5 guys who are in the Scarborough's current team are ex Lambert Smith, Hampton.
5-0, if you want to.
Yeah, it's 5-0. Yeah, he's
not that I'm keeping score in but it's 5-0.
He's testament to them, actually, that we work very closely with them, we get to know them, and then they come and work on the other side of the table, if you like. So, but it's a very close relationship. We are fully aware about what both of our businesses are up to, when they're up to it, and how they're doing it, see how we can replicate and help each other.
So for someone who doesn't understand the industry, how does that sort of synergy work, where you dovetail expertise and experience and skill sets?
Yeah, I mean, Ezra can expand, but I suppose I like to bring Ezra on board personally rather than sometimes his team members, because without sitting here and he can blow his own trumpet, but Ezra brings what I call some entrepreneurial flair sometimes to the property world. And when we're looking to generate a lot of activity, PR, marketing, etc., and looking to be slightly more entrepreneurial with our approach rather than a straight line surveyor approach, Ezra's key for me for that, whether we're selling an asset or whatever we're doing with the asset. Ezra I'd like to bring on board to work with another firm, one of his competitors, who may bring their skill set, but Ezra then can bring a much more open approach, open-minded skill set. And I like to use the expression entrepreneurial mindset to it. And I've talked in the previous podcasts, Ezra is someone who makes stuff happen and is full of ideas.
Care to expand on that at all?
I think there's a couple of things I'd say, which is, I think in our industry, I think the thing that really differentiates the different sets of advisors is where you have a mindset of ownership. If you put yourself in the shoes of your client to understand their stresses, their tension points, their opportunity, then what happens naturally, and it does with us all the time particularly, is that we can have a conversation where we're always on the same page. So there's never a conflict. If I've got a different view about something, I'll air it. If Simon's got a different view about something, he'll air it. So what we try to always do is come to the best outcome, the best solution by discussion, because your alignment is all about how do you deliver the opportunity, how do you deliver success in it. And I know that sounds incredibly simple, but quite often that is the key to how you build meaningful, lasting, trusting, enduring relationships with clients, because you know that they've got your back and they absolutely know that you've got their back. That's the nature of the relationship that's existed for 25 years with both Kevin and with Simon.
And of course, 50 years for Scarborough Group, Kevin.
Gosh, yeah, long period, isn't it?
But it's all about, I'm hearing these, these things that set you apart, really, because I'm sure there's a lot of people doing a good job at how many companies have been around for 50 years, 25 years, making that point of difference, right? If you want to get to the very top of any field, what sets you apart from the crowd?
Again, it's being adaptation. and again, because you've got colleagues who are also in the market and probably in the London market, where you're talking about money raising for projects and the like, you're getting views from, is it going to get better, worse, or whatever? And someone like Ezra to ourselves is not stitched on, but is there to sort of get an opinion on schemes that he won't necessarily be involved in via Lambert's, but it's ones where we're working with maybe other partners we've got, international or based in places like London. For 50 years, it has been ups and downs. And at the minute, I can assure you we're in this ditch. Anybody connected with commercial or residential real estate development at the minute, it's got a headache.
Yeah.
A real headache.
You talked about this, I think, in a previous episode, but sometimes like that adaptability you mentioned is so key. Sometimes those downturns.
What does it teach you? The keystone to success is the ability to adapt to change. Now, if you said that 3 times on the trot, you'd be a genius.
I'd be like the wise old owl.
You love that one, don't you?
You sometimes in the down economy, that's sometimes where you've done some of your best work. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah. Maybe what we're talking about as a downside at the moment is a difficult one, I think. We've got a government that's got us all confused. That's coincidental at the minute with worldwide problems that, we don't need to talk about, but we all recognise it's fact that will have an effect on any sort of business, and probably into bricks and mortar and real estate generally, probably more than most.
Yeah, use the ability to adapt. It's probably the most challenging period for certainly my career at this present time. And yeah, it's not helped by the current government being inept to help businesses. They look at businesses for tax rather than trying to help them grow. But again, it depends how political we want to go in these podcasts. But all companies, whatever sectors, have got a few challenges at the moment. And certainly the real estate industry it has to adapt. And, some of our competitors are doing some pretty drastic things to adapt. And we're still continuing to look to grow as part of our strategy to get through it. But it's challenging, really challenging.
And how does the experience that you've gathered all these years sort of help with that? It sounds like you've got to sometimes.
These two have got more grey hair than me.
Stay calm.
So they can answer
sometimes, it's not panicking. You talked about some of the decisions you made. Was it back in 2008 with the global crisis, and then there's COVID that you had to navigate, and now this new financial uncertainty.
Don't make hasty decisions. If you think you're going to make a decision that's important, and sleep on it. After that, with experience, and you go reflect back on what am I dealing with now? Is it something that was like this in the 70s? And, there were instances of the 70s and the early 90s, it was a plunge. So you think it through. You still make a decision that you believe is right. But again, if you think it's wrong, and because you've got your own company, you change it, don't you?
Where does that fit with your yes? The answer is yes. What's the question?
Well, that's always wanting to get going, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. What's your question means that you want to put yourself in a prime position to really then decide when you've got some bit of freedom and time if you want to go ahead with it and why I think it's good.
Okay.
And I think that's it's not a novelty. Most business and whatever the asset sector they're in think in a similar way.
If a new project was presented to you today, how much does the climate impact that, Simon, versus just the project, the standalone potential of the project?
It depends how the project's come about in the first instance. So if we didn't believe in the project, we wouldn't be looking at it in the first place. And, a lot of the financial sector, let's say, is loans huge amounts of their debt book to real estate. And, we've in the past and more recently done some assistance to help these financial businesses get out of where they may have lost faith in an existing borrower, or they may just have some property on their books. We can go in there and help them. But we'd only do it on assets and property that we genuinely believe can be a success. Of course, we can't add any value to anybody, including ourselves. So any new assets that we look at, we have to have 110% belief in that we can add value, not only for ourselves, but our various partners, be them financial institutions, banks, etc.
Look, we have some great projects underway, but there are great projects, and we're thinking, well, do we hold back on them? I.e., do we slow down the pace because of the problems of the UK as a whole, and probably you can tinker it along, not push it along. Give yourself more time to accept that probably summertime may see slight changes for a better market. Don't think it will this time around, but so you make a decision, you start ploughing ahead with the project, but never be worried about holding it back. And I'd certainly have that issue at the moment with some of our projects. They're great projects, but it's the climate that's wrong.
And I think on our side, I mean, I think we've got pretty good oversight as to what's going on in pretty much all sectors. And again, it's trying to bring some of the other experiences that I'm gaining from some of those conversations as part of a rounded conversation for the benefit of Scarborough. But the thing about Scarborough is that the projects they're involved in are pretty much best in class. The development projects are high quality locations that in good markets would absolutely thrive. I think, but to Kevin's point, the development cycle currently is just being a bit unkind to developers. And even though the quality of Scarborough, their reputation, their ability to partner with capital, partner with other stakeholders is second to none, it's the economic environment that you're in, and you can't ignore that just makes doing what they do best very, very challenging. So yeah, absolutely right to Kevin's point. There's no point in riding the horse, into the yonder at a zillion miles an hour. There's no point. You've sometimes just got to be a bit tactical. You just got to retrench a little bit, but at the same time, again, to Simon's point, pivot to where your skills can be applied to the market you're in. And we're back in the world where, banks have got a lot of challenged assets. They're not entirely sure what to do with those assets. And having partners like Scarborough that can come on board with their thinking, with their experience, and actually then help deliver solutions is a good place to be. So it just allows them to adapt, using Kevin's word, and pivot to where there is opportunity in the short term. And I think, we've been in this state now, probably, I think, post-Brexit, post-2016, we've just lived in a period of economic uncertainty. It's just that we've just got used to it. But events such as we're living through currently are just making it even more acute, because right now, out there is some pretty strong headwinds. So it doesn't mean you stop and just do nothing. You just kind of move to where there is conversation and where there is opportunity. And that's what I find that Scarborough do really, really well. So we bring them into conversations, and at the same time, they'll bring us into conversations where we can actually use our expertise and help them and guide them through a particular situation.
The theme of the podcast obviously is pull, push, shove. And I was sort of thinking that, clearly your philosophy, Kevin, is you're a doer. You want to see action. You want to move things forward. But what I'm hearing is just something, you're not doing that clearly with blinkers on. You're taking into account market forces.
You must never ignore reality. And that's one of the things. If you really think what you're doing is a great project, but nonetheless the climate's changed for reasons A to Z, it's pulling it back, not always pulling it forward.
It was a great question I got asked that post-career, start going down a little bit of a coaching path, and somebody once asked me, who coaches the coaches? And it gave me pause for thought, and because you kind of get on this treadmill. So who advises the CEO? Who advises the chairman?
Good afternoon. The regular contact. If we're around a table having a beer, which is frequently the case, after work, you don't go in there to talk business, but because there's so much on, because there's so much coming through from reading newspapers, see it on TV or whatever, it's a topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So you go around a table with friends in the same business, you're actually talking it through. Then generally speaking, you come out with something at times, say, yeah, I've got a different opinion now.
That's sort of more of an informal setting at times where you just sort of...
Yeah. It normally ends up with a big tab
but those are the ones, do you know what? Those are the ones that probably breed the most interesting seeds of thought about opportunity and things to be doing and where one should be spending one's time in terms of opportunity and creating value.
We're talking about the current economic challenges that we sit in, but I suppose as Scarborough Group, as we sit today, we're building in Scotland, we're building in Leeds, we're building in Manchester, we're planning to build in Sheffield, and I'm missing other projects, no doubt. there's not many competitors doing that at the moment. A lot are sitting, and that's, you know, I'm not being critical of them, that they have to have a different approach. Whilst we have to adapt, whilst we have to change, we have to look at how we can do things more cleverly. We're getting on with stuff still, and obviously we wouldn't be getting on with it if we didn't believe in it. Whereas some of our competitors might just put the brakes on, step back a little bit, you know, whereas we're still growing, but very much recognising the challenges with that approach, because you have to. If not, you'd be foolish.
Coming back to that, how do you identify the best projects?
It's
Knowledge.
Knowledge
Knowledge of areas,
knowledge,
yeah.
knowing the market. We're not spreadsheet warriors. We're not like that. You know, some people, they will look at the numbers, they'll analyse the detail. We are more sort of, if the gut's right, we'll give it a go. I've used the expression before, we piss in the same urinals as our markets. We understand the markets that we're in.
And with this ever-changing climate, how do you think your leadership style has evolved over the last 5-10 years?
Scarborough Group and Ezra can talk for Lambert's, but I suppose a culture of the business develops over time. And I suppose our culture has developed from Dad and his sort of stewardship for 50 years. And we've got quite a unique culture. Some might call it odd, but we have got quite a unique culture that runs through the veins of the company. And I suppose it's top down, isn't it? If you act a certain way, behave a certain way, you know, we tend to be up and about at 7 a.m. Most people are up and about, working in the office, doing this, on the phone calls. But I think I have regular contact with the team, and I'm not an email guy. I'm not an over-detailed guy, but I'm constantly in communication with them, and that's my style. But as a group, we have a very good culture of hard work ethic running through the group. Most people are quite sporty, work for the business, and I think people who are sporty have that determination, that character to make, you know, go and make it happen, and competitiveness. So yeah, but it's Kevin's culture, not necessarily mine. I've just sort of picked up the baton and ran with it.
Our headquarters are in Leeds. When I'm going to Leeds, the colleagues in Leeds will know I'm coming, because I'll get there for at least the latest 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll make sure I see our administrators, our accountants and the like. They're always there at 7 o'clock because they know I'm coming.
And how many employees are in Leeds based there?
Oh gosh, a dozen or more.
Whoa.
I do regard them as all people we employ as friends.
Yeah, we've always had that people first ethos to the business.
You're a friend of mine.
Thank you.
That's why I've made you into a decent paddle tennis player.
Thank you. Always comes back to sport. There was a little challenge going on. It's actually this side against that side of the table.
Perfect. We'll take them on.
We'll take them on.
What does the future look like? What does it look like for the next 5-10 years of the businesses?
For us, great. We've got a stockpile of things that we don't have to spend money on, but we either own or control. All we do there is slow down certain of the projects, thinking the project's right, but the timing's wrong. We're wanting, therefore, to believe that the timing will change because of the government getting itself back together and getting an orderly fashion to help businesses. Because, yeah, we'd love to be employing more people. That will really only happen when we can do more things. So, you know, we need to be around for the next 50 years.
So what about for you, Ezra? What's the next steps for LSH?
Well, we're in a period of growth. Our business has grown. Top line from sort of 90 million turnover. This year we'll do close to 150 million. Aspirations to get to 250 million. We're doing it both organically and we're doing it through acquisition and trying to bring the two things together. Culture is an important feature and part of that. How do you bring in businesses that have a similar culture and ethos where you can work together and grow together? So we're going to continue on that path again, ignoring the current economic headwinds, because this will pass at some point. The immediacy is all about making sure you're fit for purpose. I think some of the challenges businesses are going to be under over the next 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, short term, is all going to be about making sure you can protect what you've got, because you want to be the first out of the blocks when things start to change again. But our journey is a pretty exciting journey. We're part of a progressive group, which sitting at the top of it is Skipton Building Society, who are incredibly supportive of our immediate
Good Northern organisation.
They're very supportive of our parent company, Connells Group, and in turn supportive of us. So, you know, we're in a really good place to grow the business and take a full advantage of market opportunity. But again, you just got to read the tea leaves, see what's in front of you, and you've got to be able to just prioritise the things that really matter.
Yorkshire tea leaves, of course.
Only Yorkshire tea leaves. I only drink Yorkshire tea.
He's very wise. How many people do you employ?
1,600 people.
And that's the difference, yeah. Different skills needed.
In a business of the scale of LSH, I think, for me, one of the most important things is about empowerment. You've got to be able to have an empowered group of people that have got real ownership in the sense of what they do, the clarity of their role, so they can deliver and they can be supported by the centre. But I think the thing for us that makes us probably a bit different, which is why we're so compatible with Scarborough, is that we use very similar language. We talk about adaptability. We talk about culture. These are things that bind us together. But I think for us makes the journey of what we're trying to do at the minute incredibly important, because you've got to find the common things that resonate with people. High quality communicating. You can't communicate enough to the people in your business. And of course, when you're operating in a business that's got 32 different offices around the country, it's very easy that if you're in London, that they hear what's going on, but you've got to be able to make sure that somebody in the furthest reaching office is as engaged as someone else. So that has its own challenges, how you constantly try to find the best ways to get people to understand what it is you're trying to do, what you're achieving, what your goals are, what your ambitions are.
I'm loving that, like the sort of that empowering people, that employees, people who work with you, for you, and then that goes two ways, right? Because then you've got confidence in what they're going to deliver on your behalf. They're buzzwords, aren't they? But it truly sounds like they are happening on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, it's easier for ourselves than it is for Ezra, because he has so many people.
Sure.
The people who work for the group tend to be friends.
Yep.
Or become friends.
Yeah. How do you identify those people? Is there a certain characteristic you would look in? I guess it's harder to ask Ezra that with 1,600 people, but is there a particular non-negotiable characteristic that you would look for?
No. Just to be clear, they just come and nick all my staff. That's what they do. It's very easy. It's very easy.
We need to get some.
We're just a breeding ground for Scarborough. It's that's how it works.
We need to readdress that balance, I'm hearing, at some point.
No, look, it goes back to the cultural piece again, and we've had people come into the group who haven't quite fit into the culture of a family business, because that's probably the best way to describe it, as a family business. And when you are a family business, you do naturally get closer to the guys and girls who work with you, because we're all in it together. We speak regularly, we see each other regularly, and when there's moments when the family arm needs to sort of come around and support, family businesses do that. A major institution employing thousands of people, that's much more challenging to do, because there's just so many people, and actually you need different structures, different management techniques, different levels of hierarchy. We're one family. It's bang.
Don't forget, going back in time, pre the 2008 oblique 2009, when the world collapsed, so to speak, where I'd just agreed to conclude a deal to sell part of the group, we had over 200 people working for us. The climate was different. We grew internationally in a big way, and that included in the Far East as well as in Europe. That led also to Australia. So we were in number of people where you could be dealing with people who were based in Denmark, in Holland, in Hong Kong. Some of that is really getting colleagues around you who can help you sort of keep everybody advised of what we're doing, what we want to do. Spending more time, but not a lot of time per person, in talking. So going back in time, the 50 years, a good chunk of it has been with a lot more people employed during that period than is the case at the minute. So I'm sure if the market was to really go this way, we'd be employing more people. You must always try and get better. And in most businesses, to get better does require more people.
I want to look ahead to the future again now. What are the most exciting projects you've got on the horizon? Can you say that, or are they all equal in the eye of the CEO?
Look, we're lucky. We've got, as Kevin alluded to, we've got a project portfolio that sees us very healthily into the future, and it's and as Ezra kindly commented, they're pretty much best in class in the various regions we are. So we're not constantly chasing the next projects. Projects tend to come to us in that
Because
regard.
the projects are very big.
And our current projects are big, but so we're not always looking for new projects because we don't need to, thankfully. And then when new projects do come along, it's because of a relationship or a long-standing contact and a situation occurs. I'm going to say they're all best in class. They're all top quality, but they've all got their different challenges. They're not all in one sector. We're industrial, we're residential, commercial offices, etc. So there's a moment in time for the various projects. I'd like to see us go international again. Whether that means Europe, whether that means the Far East again, back into Hong Kong, question mark. I think the group's future lies probably slightly beyond the UK and going back into growing the business internationally. And once we're through this challenging period, we'll start to look across the pond. Is that the right word to use? But probably not that pond towards America. The pond towards Europe and the Far East is probably more attracted to us, given our experience. But yeah, no, they're all great projects. They're all good projects. They're all well run. They're just waiting for their moment to pounce. And some of them, are about to start building in Scotland, for example, at Rosyth, and we haven't built there for a number of years. And it's great. We're building a big shed speculatively now because there's a market there for it. It'll be a great success. So they all have their moments in time.
Kevin, you've lived in Belgium. You've obviously spent a lot of time in Scotland yourself as well. So it's almost like is it coming full circle to where?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, a lot of time in the Far East, of course.
Yeah, and what's making me smile is the international bit, and going back even further, developing for one and only time in a place called the US.
We do a lot with whether it's American institutions, Canadian institutions who are in the market to buy the product that we produce. It's just I don't think as a family or as a business we're ready to develop or invest in the US. We have in recent history done a bit in Canada, actually, investment in Canada, which was relatively successful. But I just think our initial re-expansion, if you like, into international at this moment in time, I would see opportunities coming more European and potentially the Far East.
Be interesting just to count up the number of countries we've developed in or owned properties in. And it'd be a big list.
Scarborough's a very diversified development company. And that's not necessarily the way a lot of developers have gone in the last 10 years in particular. Most developers have kind of picked a sector, one sector, and they just do that. So they're building houses, or they're building sheds, or they're building offices, or they're doing retail. Whereas actually, I think in many ways, what also makes Scarborough a really attractive partner to work with is that they're across all sectors. So again, it allows the interplay of lots of different people to get brought in, but also it's a bit like pistons in an engine, because in the current environment, not all those projects are going to sit right at the top of delivery. Some are. So what you have the ability to do is to go, right, okay, if the industrial market is a particularly hot market, which it is, how do we bring forward those projects? What do we need to do to work together to actually create value on that today? But if it's office related, which is probably challenging today, you might say, do you know what, let's just not focus too much on the resource there, but put it where there's opportunity. And I think that's a testimony to the kind of business that Scarborough is, because it can pivot from market to market and use its resource quite in quite an agile way to see where that. So again, that works really well with us.
We never stand still.
Yeah, there's always something going on.
If you stand still, you fall over. We never stand still.
Probably because of my background being in construction initially, before I switched through circumstance into property, we're much more an all-rounder than so many of the listed companies who are purely dealing in property. They tend to have that narrow vision, whereas we can look at things a wee bit differently, because we always pretty much have people around where we have projects, hence where we say Leeds and Manchester, etc. That's where we're big projects, so we're always on site.
And bringing a lot of those projects relate back to that theme again, sport, don't they?
Yeah.
Quite a lot of they're related to. I'm thinking, and we'll get onto that in a future episode as well, about the Scarborough Group Foundation as well, and the important work that plays into the future as well, right? So that's
absolutely.
You're trying to create.
Yeah.
Well, developments create a new community in some respects. So you've got to look beyond the bricks and mortar and what you're actually creating. So our big residential scheme at Middlewood Locks in Manchester, we spent a huge amount of time on what's the community we're creating, because people are going to live there, or in the office, people might work there. So you've got to actually, you're creating a community. You're not just creating a building to sell and sort of turn your back on it and move. You've got to leave a legacy of some sort, and a community that other people have to enjoy their time in. So some of our competitors might not think like that, but we certainly do.
Well, we're not under pressure because we're a family company. I mean, some of the big guys in real estate and real estate development are listed. So they're always being challenged because people are looking at the end results every year, expecting them to go that way, when so often they don't. So we don't have those pressures. We can sort of instantly say, no, hold back. As we're thinking of one or two of our projects at the minute, the climate's
or push forward, whichever the answer might be.
Yeah. So.
But you know, legacy is important. I know we touch on that in future podcasts, but legacy is important not only for the business, but also each of the individual projects and development projects that we deliver. You've got to think beyond.
Ezra, you've previously said how LSH is a people business, don't physically make anything. Those relationships are the key part of your business. How do you quantify that related to ongoing legacy?
I mean, it's a great question, because you've been hearing from Simon and from Kevin about the legacy they can create within communities, the enduring nature of not just building a building, but what does the building signify? How do you keep the life of the building going? In the case of a services business, it's about enduring relationships, because the thing that we hold dear are the relationships with the clients that we serve and the clients that we work for. And part of the challenge is, how do you build a generational connection between clients and colleagues? Because very typically, I might have a great relationship with Simon and Kevin, but I'm not going to be here forever. So at some point, who's going to pick up the mantle? Who's going to further that relationship with them going forward? And I think that's the single biggest challenge, which is all about making sure you can bring your teams into understanding your clients and your culture. And I think that's how you can endure a professional services business, because it has to center around the importance of the client and those relationships.
Always round up by just asking about one thing. Ezra, I'll come to you first. What one thing matters more to you and your business than it did 5 years ago?
Probably adaptability, and being able to very quickly pivot your business, whether you're pivoting it for growth or having to batten down the hatches. And I think the volatility of the last 10 years has taught me that as a CEO, which is, there is no week that is ever the same. Forget year, there is no week that is ever the same. So I think what I believe we do well is adapt to the changing environments that we're in.
Simon, coming to you next. What makes Scarborough stand out? You've kind of answered this a little bit, but what makes Scarborough Group International stand out from its competitors?
I think we care about what we deliver. It's not just a spreadsheet to us, it's a living and breathing piece of real estate. And we care about it, and we want to make the best job, whether that's maximizing value for ourselves and our partners, whether they're joint venture partners, the funding partners. We care about it, and we everything is personal to us. Whereas in a big institution, that might not be the case. It's a little bit more detached from what you're trying to create. So I would say our culture probably sets us apart from the competitors.
Kevin, you often have the last word yourself. You're looking at me now with that look. This episode's about rewriting the real estate playbook. And I know you've written a lot of that yourself, but what lasting legacy that you would like to leave? Hopefully there's another 50 years and beyond, of course, of Scarborough Group, but what's that one legacy piece you'd like to have left on the real estate market itself?
Well, I think the legacy piece we have on the market at the moment is, don't think you know it all. Always work hard and work as best you're able. And if the times are difficult, never give in. It's a bit like sport, isn't it? You sometimes can start a good game of squash or football or whatever, and for what reasons say you're still not doing it nor winning. But if you keep on trying hard, and you have that determination, and that's a big word, determination, then you'll get there.